Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. So let's move forward bi'idhnillahi ta'ala with the next hadith. And Babul Mashi al Khufayni, and the chapter of wiping over the leather socks. Tayyib. So we mentioned the hadith of Mughira bin Shu'bah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which is considered to be aslun min usul al-bab, one of the most fundamental hadiths regarding wiping over the leather socks. Naam. As-San'ani, the commentator, he says, إذا عرفت هذا فللمسح إن القائلين به شرطان. He says, those who hold the view that you are allowed to wipe over the leather socks, there are two conditions. This is before we go into the next hadith of the chapter, and we'll mention this and summarize the version, inshallah. He says, الأول ما أشار إليه الحديث وهو لبس الخفين مع كمال طهارة القدمين وذلك بأن يلبسهما وهو على طهارة تامة. He says the first of the two conditions, what the hadith has proven, is that one wears the khuffain, he wears the leather socks with total purification, total tahara, meaning he was in a state of full tahara when he put them on. والثاني مستفاد من مسمى الخف فإن المراد به الكامل لأنه المتبادر عند الإطلاق وذلك بأن يكون ساترا قويا مانعا لنفوذ الماء غير مخرق فلا يمسح على ما لا يستر العقبين ولا على مخرق يبدو منه محل الفرض ولا على منسوج إذ لا يمنع نفوذ الماء ولا مغصوب لوجوب نزعه. And the second condition of wiping over the leather sock is that the leather sock has to be complete. The actual name, khuf, a full leather sock. Sanani states that it cannot be ripped apart and tattered. It cannot be sheer or see-through, transparent or translucent. And it must be able to stay on the foot, not falling off the foot, hanging off the foot, dangling off the foot. All right. The thickness of the khuf so the water doesn't penetrate or permeate. It can't be a khuf that's stolen because it's obligatory to take the khuf off, so on and so forth. Right. Is it lawful to wipe over a leather sock or any sock that's ripped? That's a further discussion. Is it lawful to wipe over dress socks that may be relatively or subjectively thin? That is also another discussion. Not for now. Let's move forward bi'idhnillahi ta'ala to hadith number 54. The author rahimahullah, Hafidh bin Hajar, he says, وعن علي رضي الله عنه أنه قال لو كان الدين بالرأي لكان أسفل الخف أولى بالمسح من أعلاه وقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهر خفيه أخرجه أبو داود بإسناد حسن. Next narration is reported by Ali radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, that he said, if the religion was based off of one's opinion, one's individual human intellect, one's own reasoning, then it would make more sense to wipe over the bottom of the leather sock than its top. And indeed, I have seen the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wiping over the top of his khufs. This hadith is collected by Imam Abu Dawood, and the author states that his chain of narration is fair. Once more, وعن علي رضي الله عنه أنه قال لو كان الدين بالرأي لكان أسفل الخف أولى بالمسح من أعلاه وقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهر خفيه أخرجه أبو داود بإسناد حسن. Narrated Ali, if the religion was based off of one's opinion, one's view, then it would make more sense. It would be more befitting, it would be more deserving for the bottom of the khuf to be wiped instead of the top of the khuf. And I have certainly seen the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wipe a top of his khufs, wipe on the top side of his khufs. This hadith is collected by Imam Abu Dawood, And Hafidh ibn Hajar, he says that its chain of narration is Hasan. His chain of narration is fair. طيب. Sanani, he says, بالرأي أي بالقياس. He says what's meant by ra'i, opinion or reason, is qiyas, an analogy, a scientific analogy. Taking the ruling of something that is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah and applying that same ruling to something which has not been mentioned in Quran or Sunnah. Qiyas. And of course, there's a very long discussion concerning qiyas in Islam and the different extremes for it or against it. What is correct from qiyas and what is incorrect from qiyas. The importance and the danger of qiyas. That's a long discussion in usul al-fiqh. Let's move forward. Before we continue to read the commentary of San'ani, we say that the main lesson from this hadith is that when you wipe over your khufs, you're going to wipe on the top. You aren't going to wipe on the bottom. You're going to wipe the top of the khuf and not the bottom of the khuf. Tayyib, inshallah ta'ala. The top of the khuf and not the bottom of the khuf. Okay. والحديث فيه إبانة لمحل المسح على الخفين وأنه ظاهر. طيب. قال العلماء في ذلك قولان: أحدهما أن يغمس يديه في الماء ثم يضع باطن كفيه أو كفه اليسرى تحت عقب الخف وكفه اليمنى على أطراف أصابعه ثم يمر اليمنى إلى ساقه واليسرى إلى أطراف أصابعه، وهذا للشافعي. وثانيهما مسحه أعلى الخف دون أسفله. طيب. He goes on to say, the scholars have two views concerning wiping over the khufs, top or bottom. The first is for a person to put his hands in the water and to put the inside of his left hand under the khuf and then take his right hand on his toes, meaning stating at his instep, and then bringing his right hand to his instep, from the toes to the instep to the shin, and the left hand to his toes. That's one view right there. And the second view is to wipe atop of the khuf and not to wipe over the bottom of the khuf, period. طيب. وما القدر المجزي من ذلك فقيل لا يجزي إلا قدر 3 أصابع ب3 أصابع، وقيل 3 ولو بإصبع، وقيل لا يجزي إلا إذا مسح أكثره. طيب. And then the scholars, they differ on how much of the khuf has to be wiped. Some say the length or the span of 3 fingers, with 3 fingers. And some say that the span or the width or the length of 3 fingers, but only with 1 finger. And some say that most of the khuf has to be wiped. Obviously, Sanani says that this hadith it speaks not of any of these calculations. How much? It just says he wiped over the top. So to simplify things, we say is that it's lawful and that it's valid to just wipe over the top of the leather socks, period. Tayyib. Before we move on to hadith number 55, we benefit from that previous hadith, the virtue of Ali radiallahu anhu and the extent of his knowledge and his fiqh, his knowledge and his fiqh, naam, how much knowledge he had and how much understanding he had. And it goes to show that opinion is not the foundation of the deen. Qiyas, making a deduction or deducing something or scientific analogy, etc., that's not the foundation of the religion. That's not the basis of the religion. It's a part of the religion. It has its place, but that isn't the foundation. And this hadith also shows a refutation of those people who wish to rationalize everything and theorize everything and think that their brains are so big and powerful, and they actually lack faith and lack submission to that faith. Naam. Moving forward. Next hadith, hadith number 55, the author says, وعن صفوان بن عسال قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمرنا إذا كنا سفرا أن لا ننزع خفافنا 3 أيام ولياليهن إلا من جنابة ولكن من غائط وبول ونوم. أخرجه النسائي والترمذي واللفظ له وابن خزيمة وصححاه. Safwan ibn Asal, he narrated that the Prophet ﷺ used to order us to wipe over our khufs, not to take them off for 3 days and 3 nights. Not to take off our khufs for 3 days and 3 nights when we were on a journey, when we were traveling. Not to remove our khufs. Unless one of us had to make a ghusl janaba. If we urinated, if we excreted, and if we slept, he would say, keep your khufs on. Your khufs should stay on for 72 hours. Wipe over them. Do not take them off. When you're on a journey, when you're traveling, you're allowed to wipe over your leather socks for 72 hours, for 3 days, 3 nights. If you defecate, if you urinate, if you sleep, if you break your wudu, the hadith asghar. And as far as hadith akbar, the janaba, a man had a wet dream, a man happened to be traveling with his wife for his right hand possession, right? He would have to take off his khufs to make the ghusl. This hadith is collected by an Imam al-Nisa'i, Imam al-Tirmidhi, and the wording belongs to Tirmidhi, who declared the hadith to be sound, as well as Ibn Khuzaymah, rahimahullah ta'ala. Once more, وعن صفوان بن عسال قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمرنا إذا كنا سفرا أن لا ننزع خفافنا 3 أيام ولياليهن إلا من جنابة ولكن من غائط وبول ونوم. أخرجه النسائي والترمذي ولفظ له وابن خزيمة وصححاه. Narrated Safwan ibn Asal, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to keep our khufs on for 3 days and 3 nights whenever we traveled, if we slept, if we used the bathroom, the restroom, etc. And only to take off the khufs if one of us was junub. And this hadith is collected by Nasai, Tirmidhi, and Ibn Khuzaymah, and it was authenticated by Tirmidhi and Ibn Khuzaymah. طيب, خير inshaAllah ta'ala. The main lesson from this hadith, there are a few. The first of them is that wearing the khufs and wiping over the khufs has a time limit. There is a time limit for wiping over the khufs. That's number one. There is a time limit for wiping over the khufs. That's number one. Number two is that this time limit for the traveler is 3 days and 3 nights. We're not speaking on the resident, but speaking on the traveler. And the third benefit from this hadith, from this narration, is that one is only allowed to wipe over the khufs fil hadath al-asghar, on the minor ritual impurity. Minor ritual impurity. Ritual impurity which is minor. Then he is allowed to wipe over the khufs. As far as major ritual impurity, then no. So, let's make an example of this. If there was a sister, a woman, and she was traveling with her mahram, inshallah, or let's say without her mahram, she's traveling and she's wearing her leather socks, or we also say in today's time, she's wearing normal socks. She's allowed to wipe over those socks for 3 days, 3 nights. Now, and obviously, why is she keeping the socks on? In our modern times, people take showers daily, 2-3 showers a day maybe. People sleep. I get hot at night. My feet sweat. I get clammy. I need to, take off my socks. But she has her socks on. Her feet don't smell. Her feet aren't sweaty. She doesn't want to take off her socks. She's traveling for 3 days. The second day, she gets her menstruation. And let's say, for argument's sake, that her menstruation is only 1 day. 1 day, period. She has to make ghusl. The prayer is in. She isn't allowed to make ghusl with her khufs on. She isn't allowed to wipe over her socks. She has to make a ghusl. She has to take them off. And any other type of ritual impurity, menstruation or ejaculation. طيب, خير inshallah. Let's move forward. San'ani rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, والحديث دليل على توقيت إباحة المسح على الخفين للمسافر 3 أيام وفي دلالة على الاختصاص بالوضوء دون الغسل وهو مجمع عليه وقوله يأمرنا أو الوجوب لكن الإجماع صرفه عن ظاهره فبقي للإباحة أو الندب. So briefly summarizing his speech, the hadith proves what we've just explained, the permissibility of the traveler, 3 days, 3 nights. And obviously in our modern times, we would say 72 hours. Back then, did they calculate the hour, how we calculated the hour? Of course, we have the word sa'a, the last hour, the last day, a period of time. Did the Arabs in the time of the Prophet ﷺ have 60 minutes? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But for sure, they had the concept of hour. That's a fact. It's very old and very ancient. طيب, inshallah ta'ala, moving forward. When the hadith says, يَأْمُرُنَا, the Prophet used to order us. He used to command us. That clearly shows that it's obligatory to do so. However, there is consensus, the scholars agree, is that it is recommended or at least permissible, one of the two. It's not, you don't have to wipe over your khufs, but it's either recommended to do so or it's unprescribed and it's lawful to do so. وقد اختلف العلماء هل الأفضل المسح على الخفين أو خلعهما وغسل القدمين. Furthermore, the scholars differ. What's best? Wiping over the socks or taking them off and washing the feet? You're in the wudu station, you have your leather socks on, or as we said, for argument's sake, your merino wool socks, right? Moisture wicking, right? Breathable merino wool socks. In the wintertime, what should you do? Is it best? Is it the sunnah? Is it recommended to wipe over those socks? Or is it recommended to remove them and wash the actual feet? He says the scholars, they differ on this issue. قال المصنف عن ابن المنذر والذي اختاره أو والذي اختاره أن المسح أفضل. Hafidh ibn Hajar quotes earlier scholars such as Ibn al-Mundhir, who says, I believe it's best to wipe. It's best to wipe and not to remove them and wash the feet. وقال النووي صر أصحابنا بأن الغسل أفضل بشرط أن لا يترك المسح رغبة عن السنة كما قالوا في تفضيل القصر على الإتمام. Nawawi, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said that the Shafi'i jurists have clearly stated, صرح, they have clearly, bluntly stated, is that washing is best. It's best to wash with the condition that a person washes and not wipes just because he believes that it's best and not looking down upon the sunnah or scorning the sunnah or trying to do away from it. We don't need it. You really don't have to do it. You shouldn't do it. If that's the case, then washing is best. And the same applies. He makes an analogy, an example of traveling. It's best to make the full number of rak'at as long as a person isn't trying to dodge or just, downplay the sunnah. And obviously, if a person continues to do that, then what will be the result? Every single time, it's best to make four, best to make four, best. The Prophet never made four. It's best to wash your feet, but the Prophet wiped. Da'huma, leave them be, he told him. Da'huma, فَإِنِّي أَدْخَلْتُهُمَا طَاهِرَتَيْنِ. I put them on in a pure state. The hadith clearly says, don't touch my leather socks. Da'huma, leave them. The Prophet is not going to tell him to leave the khufs alone, knowing that it's best to wash the feet. All right? Other scholars also mention that washing the feet, rather wiping the feet, but specific, it's definitely washing is something that's from the way of the Shia and the Rawafid. These different groups and sub-splinter groups, the Zaydiyya, etc. They have this principle where you cannot wipe over the socks. And you have to wash your feet. Rather, they don't wash their feet. Many of them just wipe their feet. Wiping the foot. That's another problem. But the concept of them rejecting and denying that sunnah and not accepting it, not believing in it, not submitting to it, not taking those hadiths, as we clearly explained, are so ample. So ample. So many hadiths regarding wiping over the khuffain, as we explained. And they still don't take that. And that became a slogan. That became a hallmark. That became something that was well known from the people of innovations to reject these things. It became something that they were known for and they took pride in, and that the people of the Sunnah took pride in doing the opposite. And once again, as we have explained, that is why you find in different books that talk about Aqidah, وَنَرَى الْمَسْحَ عَلَى الْخُفَّيْنِ وَنَرَى التِّجَارَةَ وَنَرَى الصَّلَاةَ خَلْفَ كُلِّ إِمَامٍ بَرٍّ أَوْ فَاجِرٍ وَنَرَى الْجِهَادَ مَعَ الْأِمَّةِ, etc., etc., etc. We pray behind a sinful ruler. Meaning the ruler back then was the imam of the masjid, the imam of the Jumu'ah and the Eids too. We fight jihad with the sinful ruler. We pay zakat to the sinful ruler. We wipe over the leather socks. And it wasn't an issue of aqidah, but it was an issue of a shi'ar. It became a slogan for the innovators. And also the second jama'ah. Don't make the second jama'ah in the masjid. Many people misunderstand what those athar mean, because there are different people who said, don't pray behind this imam, he's wicked, you can't pray behind him. And they would intentionally come late and make their second congregation and avoid the congregation with the Muslims. You understand? So the concept of the Shia people were known for not wiping over the leather socks. So therefore, a Muslim goes to the masjid, when he takes off his socks and washes his feet, he is indirectly imitating them, even though it's permissible to wash over the feet. That's the asl. That's the default. But he's wearing the socks. He has tahara. He has wudu. There lies no doubt. The sunnah is to wipe over the sock and to take the concession, take the allowance, take the rukhsah. There's no question with regards to that. And you continually take over the socks. It has to mean something. I've mentioned this before. In the short time in which I was in Yemen studying, I witnessed many, many things. And of course, the history of Yemen. Yemen, like many countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, and other countries, they have a large Shiite population. But the Shiites in Yemen are, one may say, a little different. And one may say maybe a little more numerous, or maybe even a little more outward versus how things are in Saudi Arabia. Nonetheless, there are many Shiites in Yemen, especially in the north. And many of them are Zaydiyya, which is an offshoot of this sect, this denomination of Shiites. And of course, the Zaydiyya aren't as bad as other groups of the Shia and of the Rafid. And of course, that's a long, momentous discussion on the groups and the denominations of Shia, Rafidi, etc. That's a long discussion. Al-Muhim, in Yemen, many masjids you will go in, if not most of them that I were in, when you walk to the wudu station, I exaggerate to you not and I lie to you not, there will be at least a 3 to 4 foot pool of water between where you take your shoes off and between where the sinks are. I.e., if you're wearing socks, if it's cold, and it was very cold in the winter in Yemen, you have to take off your socks, roll up your pants, lift up your thobe, and walk through the deep puddle of water to get to the wudu station. I.e., they would force you to take off your socks. You weren't allowed to keep your socks on. Even if that was your own personal opinion, in this masjid, you're going to take them off. You cannot make wudu until you implement our madhab. And that's crazy, right? And that's a true story. Also, I remember more than once at the hospital, they would have wudu stations outside. And I remember it was cold, and people would take off their socks in the cold to wash their feet. And they were already wearing socks and shoes. Now, one may say, well, maybe they didn't have tahara when they left their homes. Maybe they didn't fulfill their condition, but everybody did it. And why wouldn't you make wudu before you get dressed, before you leave the house, knowing that it's cold outside? And unfortunately, the same thing applies to the United States. It's not a strange thing. It isn't a strange thing to go in a masjid and you see the people, the cab drivers, the people, the shop owners for dhuhr, all of them take off their socks. All of them. No one wipes over their socks. And that is why the wudu station is 9 out of 10 times is soaking wet. The floor before you even walk in is soaking wet, and all of the slippers are soaking wet. And many masjids, they will get mad at you and they will get upset at you if you walk with your shoes, even though it's where the bathrooms are, but you have to take your shoes off. You say, well, I don't want to get my socks wet on these soaking wet ship, these slippers. Take off your shoes. And they'll curse you, damn you, curse your whole lineage, your whole family, if they see you walking with your shoes in the bathroom. And you're not going to pray with the shoes, but you just can't do it. I've seen this in many, many masjids, especially many Somali masjids. And we should become extremely upset. If you walk with your shoes in the bathroom, you have to walk with your sandals. You can't do this. There's a special pair of sandals just for this for the bathroom. You have to take your shoes off, walk on the wet towels, then go into the bathroom, and then there are a pair of slippers in there. This is crazy, literally. And obviously, people have different types of culture and different cultural norms. People have different methods, but this is the United States. This is America. And in most cases, wallahu alam, I would say it's safe to bet that the average American person doesn't want wet socks. It's a well-known pet peeve in American culture not to walk around with wet socks, let alone the fact that the average person in America is wearing socks even in the summertime. There are people who wear sandals on the beach. There are people whose toes get, but the average person has on socks. That's just an American thing. Ankle socks. In the summertime, people wear shorts and they wear socks. And in most cases, they only don't wear socks when their people are, on the beach or something, or if they have a special type of, sneaker one day out of the week, whatever, with no socks. But people don't walk around every day without socks because their feet sweat and their shoes will stink. Let alone if it's cold outside, it's winter time. Nobody is walking around with just no socks on. And nobody wants to have wet, soggy socks in their shoes. So why are all of the slippers and the sandals soaking wet in the wudu station? Because no one is making masr. Whether it's haram to make masr, like the different Shia people, or whether they don't believe that it's valid to make masr upon gym socks, or nylon, or cotton socks, or whatever type of, stylish socks. You can't make masr on those business socks or those Argos socks. And the only masr that you can make is upon leather socks, thick leather socks that have a heel that you can walk outside for 20 miles with. And obviously, those are different madhab discussions, but these different points, we're talking about America now, living in America, living in Canada, all of these points show and prove that those madhab points are obsolete, and that they're weak, they're obsolete, and that it's a hardship upon the people to take off their socks, wash their feet, dry their feet, put the sock back on. Many people aren't going to make wudu. Some people are going to be discouraged. And the ease and the convenience of wiping over the sock. There's no question about that. And the ease and the convenience of wiping over the shoe or the boot. There's no question about that. And the view stating that you can't wipe over socks because they aren't from leather, they don't have a super thick sole, they aren't super thick, is a weak view. It's a weak view. And the different points that prove that view is weak, from the dalil, from the qara'in, from the context clues to show you that is an inferior opinion, is the hardship that it causes. And I've just explained to you in the wudu stations. So no doubt about it, it's discouraging seeing a puddle full of water, all of the rubber slippers are soaking wet. It's like you don't even want to make wudu anywhere. And why is the original American culture looked down upon so much? And obviously, this is one of the issues with regards to a migrant-based or immigrant-based masjid. It's a fact. It's a fact. If the masjid was predominantly attended by Muslims that were born and raised, even if they come from migrant parents, it's going to be different. I guarantee that the bathroom floor, the wudu station will be 10 times drier. But people coming in, taking off their socks, people not wearing socks, people wearing sandals, is going to be soaking wet. And obviously that's a major inconvenience to many, many, many people. And one of the wisdoms of it being lawful to wipe over the leather socks is for ease and for convenience. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.